So Apple have recently done their WWDC event where they actually, for the first time, spoke about AI. So in this video, I'm just going to go through around 10 things that I think are probably somewhat important, and then I will give my opinions on some of these things. So one of the things that a lot of people were memeing about, and something that a lot of people found quite hilarious, was the generative text messages. So taking advantage of the generative image feature, which is now prevalent across many different apps and many different chatbots, you can see here that Apple essentially has baked in a generative image thing. And what's actually kind of interesting is that this image that you're seeing was generated on device. So it seems that whatever Apple is using is that their recent advances in machine learning and generative AI have essentially allowed them to get to a stage where you can have a lot of things being generated on device. And they kind of do this because it allows the information to be a lot more secure. So what you have is a situation where you can generate images within your text, which is based on, of course, the image that you see above here. And then you do get this image right here. So you can basically create images based on what the conversation is about, and of course, based on the person you're talking to. So, this, of course, is a very small feature. It's nothing absolutely crazy. We also have another example here. You can see that they've generated another image based on that person. But I guess the only nice thing about this is that you do get some kind of personalized interactions with one another, which I guess you could say allows for a decent amount of customization. One thing that I am wondering from Apple is that is there going to be any sort of character consistency? Whereas, sometimes when you generate an image from a reference, so for example, if you have this image as the reference and this one right here, it actually looks like a really nice image. But I'm wondering if that will still be the same, because sometimes what can happen is those image references kind of change. And I'm just wondering if that is going to be a feature, if they've somehow managed to solve that. Now, I think one of the biggest things that Apple actually spoke about, and this is probably something that I think is going to be arguably probably the biggest thing for Apple and many other phone makers in the future. And I wouldn't be surprised if other, phone makers do take a leaf out of Apple's book for this. But this is the Apple actions. So essentially, this is where Apple's going into their agentic framework. If you were paying attention to some of the things that Apple had recently done on their research paper, you'll know that they've been trying to control the device with an AI agent on screen and have it do a multitude of different tasks. So Apple's actions is essentially where you can combine different apps and different actions with a simple text prompt. Well, I say text prompt, it's actually a voice prompt. So you can see here that you could essentially just say, read the song or play the song that Ray texted me, delete my birthday ideas group tab, create a folder called sketches, flip the camera, email this presentation, play the podcast my wife sent to me the other day. And I think this is pretty interesting, because what we do have is, like I said before, the first demonstration of what many devices are going to look like in the future. As many have said, the final version of AI that we do interact with on a day-to-day basis is very unlikely to be one that is essentially a chatbot where we just interface, because the future is, of course, agentic, and we're likely to have these things done for us instead of us interacting with them in a current state. So I'm wondering if, other companies like Samsung and, Android, they're all looking at this thinking, okay, I'm guessing that we're going to have to build some kind of agentic framework pretty similar to this so that we can get these things done. And I do hope that this is something that is actually effective, because a lot of times when we do have demos, the demos aren't as good as the actual presentations. So essentially what we do have here as well is that this isn't something that is that crazy, because one thing that they didn't actually show us was the fact that you can't actually chain ideas together. So you can see right here that every single action is independent. So you can move one thing to another thing, and then you can try with another action. But I'm guessing that there weren't just a million different things because they only showcased a few things that you could potentially do. This is something with Apple Actions that I guess we'll have to wait until, this is actually released so we can see how good it is. Because, like I said already, a lot of the times when we do see stuff, it isn't as good as the demos make it out to be. So Apple Actions is going to be something that I think once this does take off in further iteration cycles and they do make it a lot better, where you can say to it, I guess, go ahead and look at these images, then do this, and then do that. I think with chaining, I think that is going to be something that really does be very, very effective. And this is, of course, all on device, which is powered by their private cloud compute. And this was something that they essentially spoke about, where they said that, all of the stuff that they're processing, whichever, kind of data that you're using, whatever kind of things you send to the iOS cloud, and, you compute it if it does need the cloud compute, and if it's not on device, all of that is going to be incredibly and remarkably secure. It's a bit boring, but they're just basically saying that they're taking a different step compared to other people because they're also allowing the code, I believe, to be able to be read by other third parties so that you can verify the security of that, which I think is actually a remarkable step for Apple because they're not really transparent when they do those things. Now, in further news with the Apple Actions, what they did have was the ability to, of course, interact with Siri in a text format. So this was quite fascinating because I didn't think we would get this ability. And although this doesn't seem like much, like interacting with an AI in a text way is something that many people who use AI systems on a day-to-day basis have actually done quite extensively. But for someone who, could use Siri, I think this actually cuts down a lot of time that you might need to use if you just say something pretty quickly. But they didn't really show anything, if I'm being completely honest with you, that was truly remarkable. You know how we have certain tech demos where we see something and we're like, oh, that's actually really cool. It was just honestly things like setting the alarm, checking the weather. So I have to be honest and state that this Apple Actions things, whilst yes, it might be good for a few hands-free things that you couldn't otherwise do. So Siri is, of course, becoming a little bit more useful than it initially used to be because Siri is pretty useless other than really basic things. I think this is something that they will have to build on at next year's WWDC because right now it seems to be in its pretty early stages. And they also had something right here, which is where you can ask Siri about your device. So I'm guessing that this is something that is just based on a very large document that is somehow either hosted on your iPhone or hosted somewhere within the cloud, where you simply ask it a question and then it's able to retrieve the information based on just an entire long document based on whatever query you might have. So I'm guessing that they mapped out pretty much every question that you do have for your iPhone so that you can really understand how to do certain things. Because honestly, guys, a lot of the things that we do use always have secret features that we never really know. So I'm guessing that this is going to be something that, might be relatively useful. And you can see here that once you ask Siri about your device, you can literally then get it up here and it gives you this short informational tidbit on whatever it is that you may have asked. So this is something that I guess it just increases the usability of the device, but it's not something that is too crazy to where people are going to be thinking, wow, this is, completely game changing. Now, there was also something called app intents, and this is where this is, allowing you to do across app actions, which is basically, pretty similar to the Apple Actions, and the app intents allows you to do those things with, I guess you could say, the agentic capabilities. So this is, of course, like I said, something that's not crazy in its crazy phase. Like it's not something where they showed some insane demos. It was truly some really really basic stuff. But I do think that now that like they actually have this platform where they're like, okay, we know that we can work with certain apps. I think in the future there's going to be a lot more support for apps that you use on a day-to-day basis, because what they did announce was they did announce that this app intent is going to be under an API, which means that this is going to be something for developers. So with that, we now have a situation on our hands, because we know that developers, rather than the actual, company like Apple, they usually make stuff that's really, really useful, because of course they're going to try their very best to ensure that whatever app they have, takes advantage of all the iPhone's features in order to create the best consumer product. And with the API, it's likely that a lot of solo developers or other developers that aren't from these giant companies are going to be able to use the API to build certain products that are going to be taking advantage of the app intents, that are going to allow you to do things that we weren't previously able to do on the iPhone. Now, in addition to this, there was also this right here, and there was this small Apple, intelligence icon, which is pretty interesting because it gives us some of the basic functionalities of AI systems that we've already had. So right here, you can see that, someone's writing an email, and this is, of course, on the MacBook. So what we have on the left-hand side is we have this feature called Rewrite. So Rewrite is essentially a feature where you can just basically rewrite stuff. And this is something that, like I said before, it's not too game changing. You can essentially just rewrite your emails as friendly, professional, concise, summarize, key points table or list. This is something that is, I guess you could say, just kind of like a wrapper over something that we've previously already seen. And right here as well, you can describe the changes that you want to whatever text that you might need. So this wasn't something that anyone was surprised by. This is something that literally you could have done with GPT 3.5, and something that we've seen that with apps that have existed for over a year. So I got to be honest, this point was pretty underwhelming, because I'm sure there's a million different websites that a lot of people are even using with even like extensions and some kind of like pop-ups that already have something right here. And I guess this is going to be a little bit difficult for those who are, owners of those websites, because what it seems to be is that a lot of what we're seeing from these companies is that they're basically just now baking in features natively to these platforms that already exist on third-party websites. So I know there's a bunch of different websites that allow you to have an extension where you can literally have a menu that looks exactly the same, but now Apple have just included it that is being powered by their on-device AI. Now, this was something that I think right here is probably one of the most useful things, and I think this is a little bit innovative because I haven't seen this being done before. So what we have here is inbox summary. So if you're on iOS, essentially what you have is you have your inbox, and it's pretty crazy because when you get like 10 emails or whatever, a lot of the times what will happen is you won't know exactly what's going on. So what they'll do is they'll actually do a short summary right here, and this basically just summarizes the entirety of the email, so you can quickly at a glance look at exactly what your email says just down here. And in just literally 2 sentences, you basically get exactly what the email is about. So this is something that is just probably going to make you a little bit more efficient. You don't have to fish through all of your emails. It just says next major review in 2 weeks, schedule meeting this Thursday. Of course, retail partner visits confirmed, preferred this, yada, yada, yada. It's something that I actually think is very, very effective. And then of course here, what we did get this was this little summarize button. So anytime you open an email that is relatively long, you get this button that says summarize, and we can see what exactly the email is about if it's too long. And another thing that I think is probably going to make you a little bit more effective is priority notification. So I don't think that this is too crazy, but I think that, considering that maybe it's using Apple Intelligence, you might get a smarter understanding of what notifications are actually important to you right now. So I'm guessing that it uses probably their small model on device to summarize what is happening, and I guess kind of map out what is happening as instantly right now rather than what is going to be happening, tomorrow. So you can see that this one is around 10 a.m., this one is around tonight, and this one is at 10:30 a.m. So I guess it just looks at what is going on right now, the time of your device, and then tries to just push those notifications to the top of your list. So something that's a little bit innovative, but not something that I think, with original developers couldn't have been done in a crazy way before. Now, what we did also have was Genmoji. So this just takes advantage of generative AI capabilities. And this is basically just building upon Apple's vast emojis that they already have. So using a simple text prompt, you can essentially just use Apple Intelligence to describe a new emoji that describes whatever new novel situation you might be facing, where an emoji just isn't enough to kind of, summarize exactly or capture the essence of what it is that you're probably feeling. So right here we have a lox bagel, a squirrel DJ, and this is something that, like I said before, it's not something that's going to revolutionize anything. It's just a consumer, I guess you could say, add-on that just makes conversations a little bit more interesting. Wouldn't be surprised if we start to see some viral posts about these Genmojis, but yeah, it's just something that I thought I'd include in the video because it does take advantage of generative AI. Now, there was also Image Playground, which is where you can literally just have on-device image creation based on whatever is going on your device. So if you are texting with someone, you can essentially make an image really quickly and makes around 3 different images based on whatever it is that you're talking about. You can see we have a party, we have a chef, we have a cat, and then it uses all of these to go ahead and create an image, and then you can quickly go ahead and send that image if you need to do, and you can edit those in 3 different ways. So literally just generative AI images for messaging. Now, what we also got was the image playground. You can see right here, this is the image wand. So this was something that is, I guess you could say, a pretty niche product. It's not something with mass consumer appeal. So basically, you know how you have your notes app? Essentially what you can do is you can basically scribble on this area right here, which is previously like a sketch. So if you had like a sketch of like, I don't know, maybe like a church or maybe like a cathedral or maybe some kind of structure, what you could do is you could use your wand on that, sketch, and then you could get that to be converted into some kind of image. You can see right there, it's able to describe your image with certain words, certain understandings, and you're literally able to get that image to assist whatever it is based on your lecture. So the example that they gave us was architecture in India, the 15th to 18th centuries, and we kind of got this lecture thing going on here. So pretty interesting way to kind of utilize the generative AI things on device. But like I said before, it's nothing too crazy. Another thing that we did get was actual searching in videos. So you can actually search with natural language. You don't actually need to search for specific things, but I thought Apple's search was already really, really good. Like the ones that I honestly have on device now, when I try to search for something, you can really, really find it. Like it's really good. But, now you're able to essentially get a short description of what's going on. So if you have shot something before on your iPhone and you know exactly what it is and you can describe it in natural language, it's able to find it in the natural language, which takes advantage of generative AI. And then, of course, we had something here, which is rather interesting. So I think this one was interesting because once again, it takes advantage of Apple Intelligence. And essentially what it allows us to do is it allows us to create custom content based on the stuff that exists on our device. Now, if you've had an iPhone, you'll know already that this is kind of a feature which they already included, where sometimes it'll take your existing photos, existing images, and input that into some kind of, montage or kind of video or kind of short film that is just based on your memories around a certain period of time. Now, with this one, you can use Apple Intelligence to create that. So you can say, Leo learning to fish and making a big cache, and then of course set to a fishing tune. So this is where you can use Apple Intelligence to create your own custom content based on the stuff on your device. So you can see last summer in our garden, you could put everything that happened in November. I mean, this one, you'd have to be a little bit more creative, but I would love to see how those custom videos come out based on, the kind of selection that they choose and based on those kinds of things. Now, this is something that's not really crazy, but I think there are going to be more and more products that do offer this in the future. Now, what we also did have was this, okay? And this was where we finally got the ChatGPT integration with Siri. So a lot of people are going to be asking Siri a billion different questions, as many people do all the time. But I'm guessing that since Siri's, whatever, AI system is going to be on that device or on the cloud, that's, prioritizing speed over, I guess you could say accuracy, is going to have to sometimes use ChatGPT to be able to help complete exactly what's going on. So you can see sometimes here it offers to use ChatGPT to do that specific task. So it's going to be able to analyze what kind of task you want, wondering if you're going to use ChatGPT, if you need images, if you need more accuracy, and then it's probably going to go and use the server. Now, I don't think it's going to take advantage of the 3-1. I think it's going to essentially allow you to sign in here so you can truly take advantage of the latest proprietary models. I'm guessing that this is going to be a sign in feature, and you might just be able to have it set to GPT 3.5. But I am wondering if this is going to overload OpenAI servers, because the distribution that Apple does have is pretty huge. This is a huge level of integration that is, of course, going to bring a huge level of people using their software. So it will be interesting to see if somehow Apple can, I'm not sure how, but Apple and OpenAI can manage the compute capacity, because previously we know that there are always literally rate limits and rate caps on how much you can use their AI systems. So the integration with ChatGPT, it wasn't anything crazy. It wasn't no GPT 4.0 where you got Siri doing some crazy kind of thing in the demonstration. It was relatively straightforward. We also got this final thing from ChatGPT, where on device, on the Mac, we also got this ChatGPT integration where when you're writing notes, you can simply add images or you can simply change your words. So overall, you can see here that this WWDC, the Apple Intelligence, announcement, I wouldn't say it was overhyped, but I would say that externally by people who were in the community looking at this event as if it was going to be some kind of crazy announcement, maybe they didn't understand Apple's philosophy. Apple's philosophy is one that is where they really try to just, focus on, I guess you could say, perfectionism rather than being first to market. Apple wouldn't care if, Samsung and other competitors like Android managed to take, a large market share, because the distribution that they have and the reputation that they have. So Apple would rather roll out, small iterations to their software a lot more slowly, as long as they work, because they cannot afford a situation, where something like a Google situation happens where the AI does something unexpected, because it just would ruin their brand image. So it will be interesting to see when Apple finally takes the giant leap on generative AI, because I think that the leap will probably be next year, because by then a lot of these hallucinations and a lot of the limitations of today's models will be solved. So let me know what your favorite feature from this entire event was. Was it the Genmoji? Was it the inbox summaries, which allow you to stay on top of your priorities and allows you to understand exactly what's going on? Are you excited for the Apple actions that are going to allow you to build some interesting integrations? I do think that if these integrations were a lot more thorough, they probably would have shown it, because the demos that we did get were relatively basic. I mean, you could get one where they said edit this picture, and it literally just edited the picture in a very small way. Now, I would have included some of the videos, but for whatever reason, sometimes Apple just literally copyrights the video and I'm not able to even upload it. So it's something that I had to just use these images. Of course, if you want to watch the full stream, I will leave a link in the description. But like I said before, I don't think this update was that crazy, but I do think the actions is probably going to be the thing that, developers and individuals are looking at, because if other Android devices and makers see this and they're able to do something relatively similar, then that could revolutionize how we interact with phones on a day-to-day basis. So that is basically it for WWDC 2024 in terms of the AI segment. I'm sure other companies and other individuals are going to be giving a large piece of their opinions on what they're going to be doing in the future with regards to Apple, but I think that this was relatively interesting. So with that being said, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to check out some of the links in below. I'll see you all in the next one.